Today we are going to be talking about feminine and masculine energy. We're going to be talking about both sides of it. We're going to talk about wounded feminine, wounded masculine, and healthy feminine, healthy masculine. And we're going to look at what does it look like and how does somebody behave, or what traits do they exhibit when they are living in these different energies. So before I get started, I want to explain something really quick. Feminine and masculine energy, those are human energies. And what that means is that men and women, we both have feminine and masculine energies. Women are not only in the feminine energy, and men are not only in the masculine energy. Together, unity and wholeness and healing and living the most abundant, happy life that you can, that comes when you are able to live and when you're able to be in harmony with your feminine and with your masculine energy. This is something that I've been diving deep into these last couple of weeks and just doing my own research and studying. And the more that I am coming to understand this, the more that I see that we need to be really careful when women are wanting to only be in their feminine energy and when men only want to be in their masculine energy. These two energies were designed, created, and given to us to be used in harmony with each other. So what does this look like? What are some of the traits? I'm going to go through that just really quick. So healthy masculine energy, there's a massive list of them, but basically think of masculine energy is the action, it is the doing. So a couple examples of that are going to be protecting, providing. They're going to be more disciplined, confident, responsible, courageous. Those are healthy masculine traits. Now again, remember, this is not just for men. Women 100% have masculine energy and must operate with masculine energy. Women can be confident, they can be responsible, they can be decisive, they can be courageous. They can do all of those things. Now let's look at what healthy feminine energy looks like. Healthy feminine energy, this is going to be more compassionate, receptive, trusting, the ability to be present in the moment and not worried about what's happening ahead of you or what happened behind you. Self-honoring, nurturing, those are the feminine characteristics. And again, men 100% have these feminine characteristics. Think of a man who is able to comfort a child that's been hurt. He is nurturing. He's loving that child. Just because it says that it's feminine feminine energy does not mean that a man cannot be operating in it. And a man, really, they need to. Women need to operate in masculine energy and feminine energy, and men need to operate in masculine and feminine. Based on what we were saying, the masculine energy is what's going to give the structure, and the feminine energy is what's going to bring life to that structure. Okay, so let's look at some characteristics of wounded masculine energy first. Characteristics of wounded masculine, these would look like being controlling or domineering, rigid or incredibly stubborn, not being willing to budge or compromise, arrogance or defensiveness, aggression, confrontational, being obsessed with achievement or status. These are wounded masculine. This is where the masculine feels like it has to prove itself. So if anything feels like proving or forcing or controlling, that's not a healthy energy to be in. And so that's a really good indicator that it is wounded. And just like with healthy masculine, women 100% can have wounded masculine. They can feel competitive. They can feel the need to control. They can feel that arrogance or the defensiveness. Okay, let's look at wounded feminine really quick. Wounded feminine is going to be manipulative. It's going to feel like it needs to tear other people down so that it can be on top, like being competitive with other women, especially other women. Like if you are having a hard time liking other women, or if you're having a hard time being happy when good things happen to them, or if you're very jealous, that is a wounded feminine characteristic. Other wounded feminine would be people pleasing, being passive aggressive, really self-sacrificing. Like you give so much of yourself that there's nothing left for you. That is actually wounded feminine. That is not a healthy energy to be carrying in your body. We need to make sure that our cup is filled before we can fill someone else's cup. Okay, so that is what healthy feminine, healthy masculine, wounded feminine, wounded masculine energies look like. And again, we have these energies within us. I know in a lot of my other episodes, and a lot of people right now, there's a lot of hype around feminine energy, masculine energy, and a lot of that is pushed towards what does that look like when you're in a relationship? What does that look like for the man? How should he be treating you? Like right now, a lot of the attention and the energy about this feminine masculine energy is how should someone else be acting? And are they in their feminine or masculine? Or how should I be acting if I'm in my feminine or my masculine energies? And I feel like this is good, and I think there's a lot of really good information out there. But for me, what I have come to understand as I've been studying more about this is that before I can look at my relationship and try to decide, okay, is my man in his masculine? Am I in my feminine? Before I can really dive into that aspect, I first need to make sure that my masculine and my feminine energy within me, basically the way I operate, how I see the world, how I choose to show up in the world, is that balanced within myself. If it's not balanced, that is when wounded masculine and wounded feminine is going to come in. You can't have wounded masculine if you have really good healthy masculine, because the healthy masculine will push out the wounded masculine. So if you are struggling with any of these wounded characteristics, like if you find yourself being more aggressive, if you find yourself being really defensive, or if you find yourself being really like a people pleaser, or self-sacrificing so that you can get validation from other people, those are wounded. And the way to get rid of those wounded energies is to replace them with the healthy version of them. So really going in and being like, okay, healthy feminine is connected to her intuition. Am I connected to my intuition? And if I'm not, what inner work can I do to help me be connected to my intuition so that I'm not feeling fear and self-doubt, and that I'm not feeling energetically or emotionally chaotic? When you connect to your intuition, when you connect to your ability to trust, that gets rid of the wounded counterpart to that feminine. I hope that makes sense. So I've just been having a lot of fun studying this and being like, okay, within myself, where is my healthy masculine showing up? Where is my healthy feminine showing up? And then when I experience triggers, or when I experience something that doesn't feel right in our bodies, we know when we're out of balance because it doesn't feel right. We might not understand the full extent, and up until this point, you might not have understood why or how to get rid of it. But when you're feeling inner turmoil, that's not the whole and complete healthy energies. That's some type of wounding coming up, some type of trigger that's coming up saying, hey, this hurt, now we're experiencing this. So when I experience triggers now, I can sit back and I can think, okay, my feminine energy is feeling afraid. So if my feminine energy is feeling afraid, I need to do a couple things. One, I need to make sure that my masculine energy can step up and that it can do the protecting and tell me, hey, I've got you. You're safe. We will make sure that this doesn't happen to you again, because your healthy masculine energy will protect you and it will follow through. So say you have experienced a trigger like being abandoned. Say you made some choices and you connected yourself to a partner that ended up abandoning you or hurting you. Well, your wounded feminine is going to come in and it's going to say, oh my gosh, we can't trust ourselves. We don't know. We don't know how to pick good partners, or like I'm really afraid that's going to happen again. Maybe I need to change myself so that I can fit a better mold for these people, or maybe I need to do some self-sacrificing. That's your wounded feminine going to come in with a lot of those emotional insecurities. And then your wounded masculine is going to show up, and it might try to be overly controlling, or it's going to shut down any type of interaction with other people because you're afraid of being hurt. So what you can do when you experience these types of triggers, you can go within yourself and you can say, okay, I recognize that my feminine energy was hurt because she was abandoned. Okay, so what I need to do first is I need to connect with my healthy masculine. My healthy masculine is going to come in and it's going to say, we will never let that happen again. And the way we will never let that happen again is when we have a feeling that maybe this person isn't right for us, or this situation isn't right for us, or this job isn't right for us. When we have a feeling that something feels off, the way that your healthy masculine will protect you is that it will follow through with removing you from that situation. So your healthy feminine, you can connect to that and say, all right, when I feel that something is off, I will acknowledge it. That is your healthy feminine. You can connect to that. And then your healthy feminine can talk to that wounded part of you that says, oh my gosh, I was abandoned. I was hurt. I'm not enough. Your healthy feminine can come in and say, you are enough. I love you. You are enough. That was not okay what happened to you. I love you. You are enough for me. And next time we have this feeling, we're going to acknowledge that feeling. And then the healthy masculine is going to come in and say, yes, you will acknowledge that feeling, and then I will act on it. I will make sure that I remove you from that situation. How many of you guys have experienced times where you actually are living in harmony with your healthy feminine, healthy masculine, where you had a feeling like, this doesn't feel like it's for me, or I feel like this might be dangerous, so I'm going to remove myself from the situation, and you do. That is your healthy feminine relaying a message to your masculine. Hey, I don't feel safe. I feel like something's off. And then your healthy masculine actually does the work to remove you from that situation. Saying, all right, we're going to break up with him, or we're going to leave the party, or we're not even going to go to the party. Like, it's going to make a decisive decision. It's going to make a decision, and then it's going to follow through with that decision. That is healthy masculine within yourself. Isn't that cool? I think that's so cool. So it's been really fun for me to look at different situations that I've had in my life and be like, oh my gosh, I was totally in harmony with my healthy feminine and my healthy masculine. My healthy feminine relayed information to my masculine, and then my masculine followed through. Like even doing podcasts like this. So my healthy feminine will come in and say, hey, I have a feeling that we should talk about this. And then my healthy masculine comes in and says, all right, let's sit down. Let's make a list. Let's write out the podcast episode. Let's get in front of the computer. Let's hit record, and let's get this done. Like, that is my healthy feminine and my healthy masculine working inside of me in harmony together. Isn't that the coolest thing? I just think that's so cool. And it's been really fun because also, like I said, I've had some triggers come up this last week. And it was neat to sit back and connect with myself and think, okay, what part of me is being hurt right now? Is it wounded masculine that's coming to the surface and trying to be controlling and domineering because it doesn't ever want to feel out of control again? Or is my wounded feminine coming in and feeling really emotionally depleted and feeling like she is not enough? And then depending on what that trigger is and how it's showing up, then I can bring in my healthy feminine to connect with my wounded feminine. I love you. I'm here. I support you. And then my healthy masculine will come in and say, we won't let that happen. We will listen to the healthy feminine when she speaks, and we will protect you. We will make sure that that doesn't happen again. It's so fun. It's really cool. So this year I am studying the Old Testament. And because I've been sinking into this healthy feminine, healthy masculine within ourselves, not the outward, but the inward, I saw some really interesting examples of healthy feminine and healthy masculine and wounded feminine and wounded masculine in the stories that I'm going to share with you today. So the first story we're going to go through, this is prime example of wounded feminine, wounded masculine driving the story, driving the actions, and the results or the outcome or the consequences are actually really heartbreaking. So let's look at this story, and I have two that we're going to go through. The first one is the story of Rebecca. Now, if you remember, Rebecca is Isaac's wife, and she gets pregnant with twins. And even early on, she just knew that there was going to be lots of turmoil between these two children, because she goes to the Lord and she is like, what is happening? These children are fighting within my, why is there so much turmoil going on inside my womb? And the Lord tells her, he says, well, you have two nations that are within you. And he kind of gives her a little bit of a warning that there's going to be some turmoil between these two nations. But then he also tells her, he says, the younger one is going to end up with the birthright. Now, if you don't know what a birthright is, I'm going to go through that really quickly. In ancient times, if a father had, say, two sons, when he died, his estate would be divided into 3 equal portions. The oldest son would get 2 portions. He would get his portion plus another portion, and then the younger son would get his portion. Now, the reason that the older son would get a double portion is because oftentimes, or possibly, he would need to take care of maybe sisters that hadn't been married yet. He needed to provide dowries for them. He needed to provide for the widowed mother. There was just more responsibility. So he got his that was for him and his family alone, but then he got the extra part that was to be used to take care of the estate, take care of anybody else that needed to be taken care of. And it was also the job of this oldest son, or whoever ended up with the birthright, to also be the spiritual leader of the family, basically the patriarch. He would step into the role of his father. So where his father had been the one to give counsel and direction and help guide the family closer to God, it now landed on the shoulders of the one that had the birthright. So in this discourse with God, Rebecca learns that the younger son is actually going to be the one that ends up with the birthright, which was not typically how it was supposed to go, although in scriptures it seems like that's how it always goes. The older never gets the birthright, but typically it was the older one. So time comes, she's able to deliver these 2 children, and it seems like from the beginning there was some contention between these children. Seems like there was always some type of competition. There's a couple other stories in there that just kind of show the competition and the distrust that these 2 brothers had for each other. Well, the time came for Isaac, the father. He was getting really old, and he was ready to give his oldest son this birthright blessing. Well, somehow, I don't know how he didn't know about this spiritual experience that Rebecca had. I don't know if she didn't tell him. I don't know if he didn't believe her. We really don't know. There's really not a lot of information, so we won't go into that. But basically, Isaac, the dad, goes to the older son and he says, hey, I'm ready to give you your birthright blessing. I want you to go out into the fields. I want you to go hunting, and then you're going to bring whatever you got back, and you're going to make my favorite meal, and then we're going to have a nice father-son visit, and then I will give you this blessing. And so the older son says, okay, and so he goes out to do that. Well, while he's gone, Rebecca is sitting there just obviously ring in her hands, stressed out, nervous, worried, just completely losing her mind. Because she knows that, hold on, the younger son is supposed to get this birthright. And so instead of her staying in her healthy feminine energy, instead of her trusting that whatever God promises, he will provide, instead of her sinking into remembering what her intuition had told her, remembering what she had learned, she went into wounded masculine and wounded feminine. She started controlling, she started being manipulative, she started being sneaky, all of these things. So this is how the story goes. So she goes to her son Jacob and she says, that was the name of the younger son. And she goes, all right, your older brother's out there. What we need to do, we need to make sure that you get this blessing and he doesn't get this blessing. So we are going to go and we're going to kill a goat from our herd. I'm going to make your dad's favorite meal because I know what it is. You are going to go in there pretending to be your older brother. And so Jacob, instead of being like, that doesn't sound very right, Mom, what he said was, he's going to know it's not me. Now, at this point, Isaac was blind. He couldn't see very well. But he was like, for one thing, I sound different. My older brother is extremely hairy, apparently. He had a big beard. He had lots of hair on his arms and just really hairy. And so his mom was like, it's all right. I already got that taken care of. When we kill the goat and while I'm making the meal, we're going to put the skin on your arms so that you feel hairy. And then we're going to go get some clothes out of his closet and you're going to wear his clothes so that you smell like him and you feel like him. And we're going to convince your dad that you are him. Okay, are you noticing any of the unhealthy masculine feminine traits? There's control, there's manipulation, there's sneakiness, there's lying, there's feeling completely just out of control. Like she is losing all trust in what she knows is supposed to happen. Like she's feeling like she has to control the situation. So that's what they do. They dress Jacob up, they put him in this costume basically, and he takes this meal in. And when he goes in and his dad says, who are you? And he says, oh, well, I'm, the older brother's name was Esau. I'm Esau. And his dad's like, hold on, you don't sound like Esau. He's like, oh, well, I am. He's like, well, come closer, let me feel you. So he does exactly what Rebecca thought he would. He feels his arms and he feels, his body. And he's like, all right, well, you're hairy like Esau. And you also smell the same way Esau smells. And so he's like, I guess you're Esau. So they eat the meal, they have this conversation, and he ends up giving Jacob the birthright blessing. And then Jacob leaves, and then a short while later, Esau comes back in. And long story short, when Esau finds out that what Jacob and his mom did, I can't even imagine the heartbreak and the level of betrayal and the broken trust and everything that Esau was going through. But he was devastated and absolutely livid. I feel like probably rightly so. The way that this came about was very sneaky, and it feels very ungodly, I guess I should say. So anyways, he is absolutely out of his mind livid. And it gets to the point where Rebecca tells Jacob, she says, you have to leave, because if you stay here, Esau will kill you. Like, he was that mad. So as a result of Rebecca going into her wounded feminine, wounded masculine, and sneaking and forcing and controlling and doing all the things she did, she never saw Jacob again. She never got to connect with any of his children or his wives or be a part of his life ever again. Like, how sad is that? He left, and before he was able to come back, because he was gone for like 14 to 18 years, something like that. So, and she died in the time that he was gone. And that is just really, it's so sad to me that if she would have just stayed in her healthy feminine and in her healthy masculine of trusting the intuition that she had gotten, trusting that God is going to provide what he promises that he will provide, and then doing the actions of actually letting God prevail, letting God do what he needed to do. And instead of her just becoming that woman that trusted or teaching Jacob to become that man that trusted, she dropped into those unhealthy energies. And the results, the consequences were so devastating for her. Like, how sad was that her family was completely divided. Now, at the end of the story, it ends up being a happy reunion, and Jacob is able to come back, and him and his brother are able to reunite. But it doesn't happen until Jacob is able to get rid of that wounded feminine, wounded masculine, of needing to control the situation, of needing to make something happen for himself. When he finally steps into that healthy feminine, healthy masculine of trusting God, trusting his intuition, and then going through the actions of showing that he's trusting, becoming that person and being that person that's trusting, that's when he's finally able to reconcile. Okay, second story. This one is my favorite. Oh my gosh. We're going to talk about Joseph in Egypt. All right. So very similar. Well, not similar circumstances. Only similar in the fact that he technically wasn't the oldest son. He ended up getting the birthright kind of out of order a little bit, like Jacob did, but it was not done in sneakiness. So Jacob had 2 wives, and so the oldest son of his first wife was supposed to get the birthright. But because of wickedness and some other choices that he made, the birthright was revoked. It was taken away from him, and then it was given to the firstborn son of his second wife, which ended up being Joseph. So he got it legitimately. He didn't sneak, but also he got it out of order because he was a younger son. And as it is, when somebody gets something that you want, there's going to be jealousy and there's going to be fighting. So his brothers hated him, actually wanted to kill him, but decided instead of killing him, what we're going to do is we're going to sell him to this caravan on their way to Egypt. And so they sell him as a slave to this caravan, and then this caravan then sells him as a slave in Egypt. I want you to notice through this story, or if you want to go back and read these stories, fantastic. Pick out the healthy feminine, healthy masculine, wounded feminine, wounded masculine traits. It's really pretty fun. So through the story of Joseph, I'm not going to go really in detail of it, but basically he goes through some really hard things. So he is sold first to this one home, and it ends up being the captain of the guard. Maybe I will go into the story. Let's just go into it. So he ends up being sold into this home, the captain of the guard. And Joseph, instead of, well, and we don't really know a whole lot of the story, but it sounds like because of the way the story goes, it sounds like Joseph was just an amazing young man. So instead of sneaking and lying and conniving and trying to like claw his way to the top, what he does is he trusts that he was given that birthright blessing. He trusts that God is with him. He trusts that somehow he's going to be taken care of. He has no idea. He is literally in a completely different country, in a completely different place, and a slave, like unable to leave at all. He has no idea how this is going to work out for him, but he never goes back on his trust in God. And it says that multiple times in this story, how strongly he stuck to his trust and faith in God. That was his feminine energy. He stayed in that feeling of knowing, this inner knowing, that intuition of, I don't know how, but I know it's going to be okay. That was his healthy feminine. And then what his healthy masculine did is that he put his head down and he got to work. He just showed up as the best version of himself. He didn't try to again, lie or sneak or control anything. He was so honest. He was so trustworthy. He was so confident. He went forward with so much faith in himself and knowing that he had the ability. And because of this, Potiphar, the man that he was sold to originally, he ended up promoting him. He was a slave, yet was promoted to second in the household. There was nothing that Potiphar kept from him. Nothing at all. Everything was Joseph's to take care of because he was in his healthy feminine, healthy masculine. Well, through circumstances, things happened. There was another person in the house. Potiphar's wife was actually very interested in Joseph. And again, because he was in his healthy masculine will never take advantage of another person, ever. It is too connected to internal integrity. Healthy masculine will never try to do that. And so he stayed in that healthy energy. And because of that, he ended up being put in prison because there were some lies and some things that were said that were not true. And Potiphar became really angry. And so he threw Joseph in prison. So here he was, again, back at the bottom. But it says multiple times in that scripture that he stayed in faith and trust in God. He stayed in that feminine energy. And he was in his healthy masculine. He put his head down and he just got to work. Meaning he showed up as the best version of himself. He wasn't trying to sneak or lie or figure out how to connive his way out of prison. He just showed up as the best version of himself. And lo and behold, somehow, even as a prisoner, he was made the top prisoner of all the prisoners. So he was over all the prisoners. It's incredible what opportunities come to us when we stay in our healthy feminine, healthy masculine. We're so connected to God. We're so connected to our intuition. We're so connected to trusting that things are going to work out. And then we're also so connected to showing up as the person that trusts in that, as the person that we want to be in our healthy masculine, that things just work out somehow. And we see that in such perfect unity in these two stories. So again, through a series of events, Joseph, he is just showing up as his best self. He's very serving. He's very giving. And he has the opportunity to interpret these two prisoners' dreams. And he interprets them correctly. And then one of the prisoners, the way that the dream was interpreted was that he will go back and he will be in the service of the Pharaoh again. And Joseph just asks him, he says, hey, when you go back, would you please remember me? Please remember me and help me to get out of here. I don't feel like that was conniving. I don't feel like that was sneaky or controlling. That was him just asking. That was him just proposing an opportunity. He wasn't like, and if you don't, I will haunt you or whatever. It was just, please. He asked, and then he just, again, sunk back into trusting that it was going to work out and doing the things that he needed to do to show up as the person that he wanted to show up as. So 2 years later, this is so sad. So he's in prison for 2 years, 2 years longer. I don't know how long he was in prison originally. But anyway, 2 years later, the Pharaoh ends up having this crazy dream that he cannot interpret. He doesn't understand it, yet he knows that there's something really important about it. Like, he really needs to know what this dream means, but he doesn't understand it. So he goes searching in his kingdom for his magicians and, his wise men, his priests, to tell him what this dream means, and nobody can. Well, suddenly, this other man that had Joseph interpret a dream for him, suddenly he remembers Joseph. He's like, totally forgot. There's this guy in prison that is really good at interpreting dreams. And so Pharaoh's like, well, get him in here. I want to talk to him. So Joseph is brought in and he's talking to the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh tells him, said, this is what I dreamed. And he tells him this crazy dream. And Joseph's like, well, I don't have the ability to interpret dreams, but God does. And he can tell me what your dream means. And I love that. That's such a feminine quality or a healthy feminine and healthy masculine, to not take credit for something that's not yours. Like, you're willing to do the work, but you're also not going to sit there and pretend like it's all from you. That's very wounded masculine, I would say, to take credit for the work that somebody else did. But he didn't do that. He was very clear that I don't do this. This is from God. So he tells Pharaoh this dream, and basically what it ends up being is that Egypt is going to have 7 years of incredibly good harvest, and then 7 years of a horrific famine. So horrific that they wouldn't even remember what it was like to have a season of good crops. And so Joseph's telling him, he's like, this is a really good opportunity for you to prepare for this season of really hard famine type times. And he's like, what you need to do is you need to find someone that you trust who can help Egypt to save the food, the extra food, so that they're prepared when the famine hits. And Pharaoh's like, I think I found my guy. And basically puts Joseph in charge of the entire country of Egypt. The only person that is higher ranked than Joseph at this point is Pharaoh himself. Like, what? That is the most, to go from a prisoner to second in command of Egypt. Like, that is unbelievable. Why? Why did that happen? It happened because he stayed in harmony with his healthy masculine, healthy feminine. He showed up as this whole and complete person. Someone who trusted God, trusted that things were going to work out, who knew deep inside, I don't know how this is going to work, but I'm not going to force it and I'm not going to manipulate it. I'm going to trust. And then the way that he showed up in the world, again, like I've been saying, as the best version of him. How can I be better? How can I do better? How can I show up better? How can I serve better? Those are very good qualities of the healthy masculine energy. And that's what he did because he was in that the harmony of those two energies. So do you see the difference between living in wounded feminine, wounded masculine? The fear, the worry, the overthinking. I can't even imagine. Rebecca's mind had to have been going crazy living in that wounded state. Like, how are we going to make this work? I don't know. Like the inner turmoil and the stress and the anxiety that she was feeling. Versus Joseph, I'm sure he had opportunities to feel stress. Who wouldn't? You're being sold as a slave. I feel like that's kind of a given, but he didn't let that control him. He didn't let that change him. He stayed connected with who he was, who he knew he was. He stayed connected to the faith and the trust that I was given these blessings, these opportunities. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I know somehow that it's going to. So instead of him sitting on his bottom and stressing and worrying and try to sneak his way out of the situations, he just became the best version of himself. And because of that, if he hadn't been the best version of himself as Potiphar's servant, or slave, if he hadn't been the best version of himself as a prisoner, if he hadn't been the best version of himself in all of these times, he would not have become the man that was able to prepare Egypt for the devastating famine that was on the horizon. He had to go through all of those things. And I love it because so many times we experience this where we feel like things are happening, or we feel like we've been promised certain things, or that things are going to happen for us, or maybe we just have like this intuition or this knowing. And we sit there, and instead of trusting and being like, all right, God, I know that this is going to work out for my best good. It always does, you guys. Life, if we surrender to God and let him take control of our life, things always turn out better than we could ever imagine. So often we have that opportunity to experience something. We get to choose. Are we going to let this traumatic experience turn us into bitter, angry people, aka wounded masculine, wounded feminine? Or are we going to let this experience refine us? Healthy feminine, healthy masculine. Are we going to trust that it's going to be okay? And then once we decide, yes, we're going to trust, then we're going to get to work becoming the person that we need to be in order to have the things that we've been promised. Whether that means having better discipline, being more compassionate, being more courageous. Like, what is it? How do you need to show up? What do you need to do? The feminine energy is the inward. It's the feeling. It's the knowing. It's the trusting. The masculine is the one that says, all right, let's get to work. Let's do what we need to do to become that person. I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope you've enjoyed this, because when I was reading this and when I was looking at it through this lens, I was like, this is literally the coolest thing. I love this. I'm going to focus more on making sure that the healthy feminine and masculine within me is balanced and harmonized than worrying about whether or not the man in my life is in his masculine energy. That's not wrong. I'm not saying either one is wrong. I'm just saying that how cool is it that when you can recognize this is a healthy masculine trait and I love this. This is a healthy feminine trait and I love this. They're working together to get me closer to where I want to be. Or when you've been triggered or hurt and you're like, oh, I can see what I'm doing. That's a wounded feminine trait. I can see where I'm hurt there. Or I can see the wounded masculine. I can see what's going on there. The way to get rid of those, the way to heal from those is to replace them. What do you want to replace them with? Choose something that you want to replace them with. Have compassion for that hurt part of you. Love that hurt part of you. And then let that healthy masculine come in and reassure her, you're safe. I will make sure that I listen and I do the things that I need to do to keep you safe. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you want to connect with me, I have a Facebook group that you can connect with, or if you want individual coaching, you can sign up for that as well. I love you, and I will talk to you next time.